All right, let's take the latest cherry news on South Africa's energy availability and steady power supply into the business and investment arena. As we bring on the show, the executive chairman at Impact Africa Investment, Chris Hart in Johannesburg. Great having you with us again on our Rice Exchange tonight. I'm sure you've got a whole lot of electricity there. So do you think some progress has been made around steady electricity in South Africa right now? Do you think so, Chris?
Well, at this stage, 40 days of uninterrupted power is, of course, quite impressive. It's had an effect on the economy, a positive effect on the economy as a consequence. But when we look in the background, the Eskom has been burning an enormous amount of diesel. In other words, they're running their diesel generators quite hard at the moment. And of course, the cynicism suggests that after the election, we're going to go back to load shedding because burning diesel is just simply not sustainable, and that the fundamental problems of Eskom haven't really gone away. They're still quite deep-seated, and the number of breakdowns that are happening. And it's not just the breakdown of the Eskom generating grids. Even though there hasn't been load shedding, there has been quite a lot of reported outages of electricity because of local network breakdowns, such as substations, etc., that have occurred, that have also affected areas. But nevertheless, the fact that there has been good supply of electricity over the last 40 days has had an enormous positive effect on the economy. In other words, the disruption of load shedding has been very, very minimal as a consequence.
Interesting, Chris, but how is the business community taking the energy availability news and the cutback in load shedding? What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, I think people are still worried about the long-term stability of the grid, and there's still an enormous amount of investment going in to the to actually get alternatives to Eskom. I know we ourselves are negotiating with a number of municipalities to actually augment it. What we don't see there is an uneven distribution in the sense that your rural municipalities are struggling a lot more. In other words, when we see load shedding in the urban centres, the major metro areas, it's actually exacerbated in the rural areas. And so I think there's still a lot of plans that are underfoot to get alternative augmentation to the electricity supply. In other words, people are not necessarily looking to get off the grids, but it's to be able to cope with the grid instability, so that the effects of load shedding are in fact minimised. The effect on the rural economy has been particularly harsh because you've got industries that are leaving the rural towns and villages and migrating back to the urban metro areas because of things like, it's not just electricity stability, it's water supply in your far-flung areas, not just the supply, it's also the quality of water that's been deteriorating. So it's certainly a dual crisis that's developing.
But if you look at South Africa's PMI numbers came in Friday or so, it's a bit stronger for the month of April. What's moving that needle, Chris? How is the investment community pricing in both the upcoming elections as well? What's the outlook?
Well, I think firstly the rebound in the PMI is a direct result of the fact that there hasn't been load shedding. That has actually helped to boost the industrial output, and the disruptions, of course, has been minimal, and so we've been able to run our industries, without that disruption. The effect of the election, we are seeing people holding back because of the uncertainty that I think that we anticipate. We anticipate that the Parliament will be hung, and that there will be a need for a coalition government afterwards. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on whether the coalition centres around the extreme left or whether it centres around the political centre. And that's going to be the biggest outcome. If it goes around the hard left, we are going to see problems with things like further credit rating downgrades, etc. Because we also know from a policy perspective, a lot of the more destructive policies like national health and minimum wages and national basic income grant, these types of very populist type of policies, which is unaffordable at this stage for South Africa, are going to actually be pushed through if it's an extreme left government that gets formed after the election. But if it's a centrist government, a lot of these policy boondoggles may actually be brought back, and certainly some of the very, very harsh regulation, which is really damaging, especially to small businesses, may actually be alleviated, even if it's just for small businesses. And we may well see a positive outlook. So I think that things are a little bit on hold, but I think there's also a lot of hope. There's a lot of, I think, energy on the ground, if you like, trying to actually get over it. We still have an enormous unemployment problem, and certainly if the political debate doesn't seem to have very strong solutions for the unemployment other than political rhetoric, which of course doesn't create jobs. And we definitely need that. That's probably the biggest challenge. So it is the biggest challenge. There isn't a bigger challenge to South Africa other than unemployment. And it's the unemployment problem is really a deep-seated cause of many other problems and symptoms that are occurring, things like inequality, poverty, etc., that are particularly problematic. And so hopefully we see a turnaround where we can actually curb corruption. Corruption is sucking resources out of the economy, which is, again, anti-job creation. We hope that will be curbed after the election, and that we will get a fairly sensible government after the election.
Okay, we're just about 3 weeks to the general elections. It's going to be a very crunchy one, I'm sure. We're watching the political gladiators across the divide. The electioneer is going to take a whole lot more attention. Everyone is focusing on that right now, trying to price in whatever will be the way forward for Africa's most advanced economy. And I'm sure you're keeping an eye on both politics and business for us there. Chris, we'll be touching base with you over the next 3 weeks as we get closer to the elections to give you your thoughts about the elections and those who are the big players in the upcoming general elections for South Africa. Thank you so much. Have a great Monday evening out there in Joburg.